Thanks for checking out this video. For a full list of materials used in this project, head down to the description below and click on Show More. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and lay out all the materials that I'm going to need. I have my 8/0 seed beads, my 11/0s, and my 15s, so I'm using 8s, 11s, and 15s. And then I have my 6mm beads here, which I'm using gemstones. And I like these matte gemstones. I like the different textures. So I'm doing some matte and some opaque shiny and some galvanized. And then we also have in here a dark metallic, a dark metal. This is the gunmetal one hole halo bead. The one hole halo bead will fit perfectly around my 6mm single hole gemstone beads. My first step here is going to be to add a little stop bead to my thread, and I'm going to use the 11/0 color because I'm actually going to use a stop bead in my project. So I'm just going to use that same 11/0 color that I have here in my project. So one of those stop beads, and then we're going to put our 6mm gemstone inside one of these halo beads. And now the trickiest part, I think, of this project is just getting those holes to line up. If you can kind of see where that hole is in your bead inside in your 6mm, you're just gonna line it up with the hole in your halo bead, and with your needle just kind of finagle it a little bit, and then your needle will go through both the halo and the 6mm bead inside and come out the other side. So treat the halo and the gemstone just like one bead and line those holes up. Coming out the other side here of the halo bead, I'm going to pick up 3 of my 11/0s. And as you tug on it, it might shorten your tail thread because you might accidentally pull this little stop bead that you have down a little bit farther. So if that happens and it gets too short, if you need a little bit more tail thread, it's very easy to just grab that bead there, grab your stop bead and just pull it up a little bit, and then it'll give you a little bit more tail thread. So I've come out the other side of my halo and I've picked up 3 11/0s. And now I'm going to go back through the halo and the bead inside. I'm not going through any of the 11/0s, just going through the halo and the bead inside. And then as I pull that, you can see it'll pull my 3 11/0s here, and they'll form a bit of a triangle, or like a little picot trim you could call it. They kind of form into a little triangle. So I'm going to do the same on this side, but I'm going to pick up 2 11/0s, and then my stop bead will be my 3rd bead. So I've got 2 11/0s here on my thread, and then I'm going to go through my stop bead and back through the hole in my halo and 6mm bead. Come out on the other side here, and if you want to push things into position, you can. So you should have like a little triangle stack of the 11/0s on each side. So now what I'm going to do is take my needle and thread, and I'm going to go through all 3 of the 11/0s that I have on this side of my halo and give it a little pull to just make sure everything's nice and tight. Coming out that 3rd 11/0, now I'm going to pick up some 15/0s to sit on the outside of my halo. Should be about 12 15/0s. So I'm going to start with 12 here. And once I have those 12 on, I'm going to go to the other side here, go through that first 11-0, that one that's sitting on the halo bead, and that looks right to me. 12 looks about right. Depending on what bead you use, you may want to do 11, you may want to do 13. I would start with 12, and if that does not work for you, then you could try a different number, but start with 12. Through the next 11-0, and then through the 11-0 on the other side. So now we're coming out that third 11-0 between the 11-0 and our halo bead. And I'm going to pick up another 12 seed beads. These are my 15-0s. Okay, that's 12, if I counted correctly. I like to count in threes, and that way I know if I have picked up 3 beads 4 times, I have 12 beads. Those little tricks that make it easier to count. So now you can see, so I've gone through just that one 11-0 there. And now you can see I've got my halo bead and little picot trim, little triangle pile of seed beads on either side. And then I've trimmed this again. I've trimmed my halo bead here with a gold color. So you've got a bunch of different layers going on here. You have the matte gemstone in here, surrounded by a halo bead, and then surrounded by some shiny 15-0s. So I like all the layering that's going on, and it's not very difficult to do, but I think the more layering you add, it just makes it a little bit more interesting to look at, gives you those layers and those different textures. So just kind of like a really fun way to simply add a lot more interest to your piece. Pass through the second 11-0 here. So you've gone through one 11-0, we're coming out the second 11-0, which is the center 11-0 in our little section here of 3 11-0s. And now at this point, we're going to continue on, and we're going to add a couple more sections like this, and we're also going to throw in some right angle weave. So go ahead and get yourself to this spot, and then we'll move on to the right angle weave section. After finishing one of these little halo bead sections, we're going to make a little connection here with right angle weave, and then that will lead us into repeating this step. So coming out of that center 11-0 here, my center blue bead here, I'm going to pick up one of my 15-0s, an 8-0, and a 15-0. And then pass through that blue bead again, that center bead, up the side, so up through that 15-0 and through the 8-0 again. And this is just basic right angle weave. So if you're not familiar with right angle weave, we have lots of other videos if you need to spruce up on that. I'm going to then pick up 3 more 8-0 beads, and then back through my 8-0, my white bead there, pulling it and forming it into a little circle or a little square there, since I have 4 sides. And then what I'm going to do is around all 4 of my seed beads, my white 8-0 seed beads here, I'm going to pass through them all again, picking up a 15-0 each time. So coming out of one 8-0, I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and then pass through the next 8-0. Pick up a 15-0 and pass through the next 8-0. And continue this around until you've added 4 15-0s. And you'll be back to the bead where you started. So this adds a little bit of interest there. Adds a little bit of interest. It also carries this gold color into the connection, into this connection point here, so that we have this gold color throughout the whole necklace. I'm a big fan of always trying to carry little details throughout a piece so that something doesn't look like it lives in just one part of the necklace or one part of the piece and it's irrelevant to the rest of the piece. So little things like that are nice to think about. So now after we've created this section of right angle weave here, we're gonna just kind of work backwards here, and we see the next connection we need to make. We're gonna pick up one 15-0, one of our 11-0s, and then another 15-0. I'm gonna pass through my 15-0 and then my 11-0 again. And if we just take a look at our sample here, the 11-0 that I just added is going to be the center 11-0, or the second 11-0 in this group of 3 that's going to work around our frame, our bezel here around that 6mm bead. I'm going to pick up one more 11-0. Because we can see here I need one more 11-0. And now I want to get another bead ready here, another 6mm and halo bead ready. So I'm going to line up those holes, which, like I said, for me, that's the most tricky part of this project for me, is just lining up those holes. But once you get it, it's easy. And I'm going to pick these up just as one bead, that halo and the bead inside. Pick up 3 more 11-0s and back down, travel back down through that bead, through that halo and gemstone. So now this is just repeating the same steps that we took on the first section, on the first gemstone. I need one more 11-0 on this side though to complete my group of 3. And I'm going to pass through that 11-0 that I added with the right angle weave, and that will complete my group of 3. And now from here I can start adding the 15-0s along the side of the bezel. So again, 12 worked for me. 12 is a good fit, so I'm going to stick with that 12. And hope I didn't lose count here. That should be 12. Through the 11-0 on the other side here. Through the next 2 11-0s. And when I come out that last 11-0, pick up another 12 of my 15s. It helps to kind of space them apart and scatter them a little bit. It's a little easier to pick them up. Still need to be careful though, because you can easily lose track when they want to just fall off your needle. That should be 12. So through that first 11-0, and I'm just going to go through all these 11-0s again. So 2 more 11-0s. And once I go through the 11-0s, I'll go through the 15-0s along the side. And I want to work my way just through all the beads until I get to the center 11-0 here at the end of my project, at the end of the piece. So now I should be coming out of the 11-0, this 11-0 here at the end, and I'm in position to then just repeat the steps I did. I'm going to add this connection here to my next section with a little right angle weave, and then I'm going to add one more section, or one more section here with the gemstone and halo bead. So go ahead and follow those couple steps, and I will continue on here once I've added my third section with the gemstone. I completed 3 sections with my gemstone and my halo bead. And after my third section, I added a little right angle section here with the connection, for the connection of my 8/0 seed beads. So now what I'm going to do is work with my gemstones alone without the halo beads. So the next connection I make, the next section that I add, is going to be similar to the section that I add here with the halo bead, but just without the halo bead. So just like we would, coming out of one of our 8/0 seed beads, I'm going to pick up a 15/0, an 11/0, and a 15/0. Go back through that 11/0, or that, sorry, go through that 8/0, up through the 15, and through that 11/0 again. And just like on our previous sections, we're going to pick up one more 11/0 here and go through, this time, just our gemstone. Pick up 3 of the 11/0s and back down through that gemstone. Another 11/0 and through the 11/0 that's part of that right angle weave there. So that will be the center of our group of 3. So you can see now I've done the same exact steps, so I haven't really done anything differently. The only thing that I have done differently is that I just didn't put that halo bead around my gemstone. So again, just continuing the same steps that we did last time, I'm going to pass through one of my 11/0s here, so I'm through that last 11/0 in that group of 3. And then for the trim of 15/0s around the bead, I don't need 12 on each side because this is a much smaller circumference here to go around. So I'm only going to need 8. Pick up 8 seed beads, 8 of those 15/0s, and then go through the 11/0, that first 11/0 on the other side. And then again, we're going to go pass through all of these 11/0s. And once you go through the last one, we're in position here to add 8 more 15/0s on this side. Through the 11/0. And I'm going to go through that center 11/0 and the last 11/0 through the first group of 8 15/0s I picked up. I'm just working my way back to the end of the project so I can pass through both my 15/0s and then 2 of those 11/0s. So you can see I'm gradually now, I've got these beads here which are a little bit heavier. These will be down at the center of my necklace, and they're heavier. They have, they're a little bit wider because they have that halo around them. And then I move into something a little bit more simplistic that doesn't have the halo around it. And I'll do maybe 2, 3, 5 of these. I'll probably do an odd number of these up the side. And I'll do the same thing on this side. So I'll just attach a new piece of thread over here and do the same on this side. So we want to make it symmetrical. This section here is about 2 inches or so. So for an 18-inch necklace, if I want to make it 18, I need about 16 inches on either side that I'm adding. So about 8 inches on each side to make a full 18-inch necklace. Probably what I'm going to do here is probably do about 5 of these beads like so up the side, and then I might finish off the back with just a simple little right angle weave pattern. So I'm going to continue and work in some more of my gemstones I'm going to go to this side and add a piece of thread and follow the exact same steps and just repeat it over on this side. And I will, once I get a few more beads done, I'll show you what I have. I've continued to add my sodalite beads, my gemstone beads here, without the halo around them. And I've added 5. Now you can continue, of course, to the full length of your necklace, but if you wanted to do something a little different up the back and change the pattern again, I'll show you how to do just a simple little right angle weave and incorporate the colors that we have here. So coming off of the center 11 here, 11 here, just like in our other steps, we're going to pick up 115, 180, and 115. So this is going to start out just like the other connections that we've done with the right angle weave. Through that 80, we're going to pick up another 3 80s and back through that 80 again. Still embellishing with those 15s. So as we pass through each 80 again, we're going to add a 15. And now we're going to pass through just the 80s and come to the 80 at the very end, situated here at the very end of our project. So now what I'm going to do, this step is, of course, pretty familiar to you. You've been doing that. So now the next step is just going to be continuing the right angle weave, but my next section is going to be with my blue 11-0s. I'm going to pick up 115-0, one of my blue 11-0s, and then another 15-0. Again, this is very similar. This is what we've been doing. Up through that 15-0, through the 11-0, and now I'm going to pick up 3 more 11-0s to round this out and make this whole little section blue. So I'm just expanding on this right angle weave section of blue. So I'm making a whole section here that's just 4 blue beads. And I'm going back through it all again just to make it nice and tight. I'm not adding the 15-0s in between each one of these because I think it's just a little too small. It's just a little bit too small, and I just think it's unnecessary at this point. But when we add another section with the white beads, with our 80 beads, I'm definitely going to add those back in. So again, here I'm just going to pick up a 15-0, an 8, and a 15-0. And back through that 11-0 at the end. And from here we just pick up where we left off with our pattern, and we're going to start another section, another little section here with the white 80 beads. So to continue the chain up the back here, I'm essentially just doing right angle weave, but I'm doing the white, a section of 4, and then I'm doing white, gold, blue, gold, and then I'm going to do a section of 4 of my blue beads. So just continue that pattern all the way up to the back, however long you need it, and then you can add the clasp. I have a wonderful length of my project here with my halos where I started at the beginning, and this is the first section I did. And from there I created a section with no halos and just the gemstones. And then I did a little section here which will be at the back of the piece, and this is just a little right angle weave section. But what I haven't done is the whole other side of my necklace. So what I'm going to do now is show you just how to add a piece of thread to add the second side of your necklace over here on your last halo bead. And from there we're just going to follow the same exact steps to create a second half. This is the thread that, this is the bead where I started. So this is the very first section, the very first step that I took in making this necklace right here. I have my thread coming out end here. This is my tail thread. And so what I'm going to do to add new thread is whatever bead that tail thread is coming out of, I'm just going to go through that bead with my thread and needle, and that is going to become my stop bead. So I'm going to take my thread needle around it again, and then I have both tail threads together. This will make it easy to tie them off later because they're both coming out of the same bead. I can quickly do a simple little overhand knot, do that a couple times, burn it down, but both my threads are in the same spot, so it's very easy to tie that off. So at this point, we're just going to follow the same steps that we did when we first started our section without the halo beads. All we're going to do here is continue with the right angle weave connections, add some of the beads without the halo beads, and we're going to make it symmetrical. So whatever you did over on this side of the necklace, from this point on, we're just going to do the exact same thing. So when you're done, you'll have a necklace that has 3 of the halo beads in the center, and this will be repeated, this section that we just did, and this will be repeated right up here. So go ahead and make that connection and repeat all the steps that we did for this section here that we did for this side, and then we will go ahead and add our clasp on. To add the clasp, all you're going to need is your finding set for the clasp. Mine is going to be a lobster, a couple of jump rings, and these are open so I can open and close them. And then I have a couple wire guards and a few of my 15-0 seed beads. Coming out of one of my 11-0s here, it's the 11-0 that is at the very, very end of my project. I'm going to pick up one 15-0 and then my wire guard. And if you've not used the wire guards before, you're going to go up through one side of the wire guard and down through the other. You'll notice that the center of the wire guard, the U, the bottom of the U, is actually open, and there's a little trough in there, so you want to make sure that your thread sits in that trough. And then you're going to go down through that little tube at the end of the wire guard. Little tube or tunnel for your thread and needle to go through. I'm going to pick up another 15-0 and go back through the 11-0 at the very end of my project. So as you do this, if your thread pops out of the wire guard, just place it back in and pull it tight so it sits in that little open trough. And we're going to go through again. This wire guard is going to hold your clasp together, the whole clasp section of your piece here. So you want to go through a couple times and just make sure that you reinforce that with some extra thread. That will make it stronger, so as you grip on it, it will withstand any wear and tear a lot better than if you had just put one piece of thread through there. Okay, so I have a few pieces of thread running through there, so I feel pretty good about that. And it looks nice there at the end. So at this point, all I'm going to have to do is tie off this extra thread. I'll take it back through my piece a little bit, just retracing my thread path that already exists. And then when I'm someplace where I want to tie it off, I'll go ahead and take my needle and thread and tie it off around some of the thread that's already running through my beads. Just a simple little overhand knot. And then I like to take it through another bead or two. And hide that tail. If you have a really good sharp pair of scissors, you can use that. But the thread burner will cut it and will cauterize it. it will melt the end there, so it is not likely to pull through your beads and ever come undone. So I'm going to use my little thread burner there. And I've got a nice connection there. I have my wire guard at the end. So now, depending on what end of the necklace this is, you're going to either add just a ring or you're going to add a ring and a lobster. I'm going to take my jump ring, and you're going to need a couple of flat nose pliers or needle nose pliers that just have they're just flat inside. And take that take that jump ring and just twist it open. And now for one end of your necklace where you're just adding a jump ring, we can just take this and close it right back up. And there's the one end. But then if we want to add the lobster, we're going to take the lobster, and the little ring at the end of the lobster is just going to go right through that jump ring and close that up. So there you have it. So on one end, just go ahead and add that ring just as it is. On the other end, we'll add the ring and the lobster, and then that will be the end of our necklace. It'll be all finished and ready to wear. If you enjoyed this video, please comment below and let us know your thoughts. You can also subscribe to our channel to be notified as soon as we have more beading tutorials out that you will enjoy probably just as much as you enjoyed this one.